From the Victory Studios in downtown Little Rock, this is Capitol View with your host, Jesse Tenor.
Good Sunday morning to you and welcome into Capitol View. I'm Jesse Tenor. Election Day is now less than a month away, and this morning we'll feature our final Capitol View Legislative Forum. You'll hear from the candidates running in House District 84 in Northwest Arkansas. We begin with the race for Congress right here in Central Arkansas. This week we welcomed Representative French Hill and Raymond Chisty, a member of British Parliament, who have created this international partnership they hope will enhance their country's economic, military, and educational ties. I talked to Congressman Hill about some key issues in his race for re-election here in the 2nd District. Here's part of that conversation. I wanted to go off of what you were saying about the new trade agreement. So the president's now calling it USMCA, fitting. Yep. I know you said that you still need to read it over a little bit before it goes to a vote, but were there some key takeaways there for you just in what you've been able to digest so far?
Yes, well, from reading the summary materials, I like the fact that it kept the dispute resolution in. This was something actually the Trump administration opposed, but I felt was a good provision. I'm glad Mexico, Canada, and the U.S. could agree to keep that. Secondly, I think it's good that we have the intellectual property standards that we allow to recognize the digital world where we sell products to each other, not physically over a border, but through the mail and through shipment over the border. I think that's an important consideration. And then I think President Trump had a challenging but good victory on trying to boost the U.S. amount of content in the automotive industry. It was in the low 60s. He's moving that up over time into the 70s. That's a major negotiating accomplishment for the administration. But I do want to read the whole text. We'll have that before us to study before we're asked to vote on it early next year. But I think it's a step in the right direction. And I was pleased to see most of the component parts in there.
What are your thoughts on the president's comments that anyone who opposes tariffs is a baby?
Well, look, tariffs are a blunt instrument. They're taxes. They can, when used inappropriately, raise costs to consumers and business. And as you know, I'm opposed to the across-the-board steel and aluminum tariffs that the administration opposed. I think that takes our eye off the ball of completing the NAFTA negotiations, which we have, and getting Europe to work with us to confront the mercantilistic, protectionist regime in Beijing on trade. We need Europe's help to do that. I've offered many suggestions on how to pivot and change the approach on steel and aluminum tariffs, and I hope the administration will do that because it's hurting businesses in our country who import some steel or aluminum component to make a product and then sell inside the U.S. So those prices are up. I don't think that's essential to national security, so I've offered some constructive suggestions there.
And then the president has said in recent campaign rallies, including the one this past week in Mississippi that I was able to be at, that covering pre-existing conditions is a top priority. But then Arkansas is one of several plaintiffs in a lawsuit that's seeking to have Obamacare invalidated, which would, of course, lose protections as they currently exist. So most people believe that pre-existing conditions, should be protected. But do you think the administration and other members of Congress are prepared if that lawsuit is successful, both in terms of politics and policy?
Well, the lawsuit is about the Affordable Care Act generally, and people have then taken from that would endanger pre-existing conditions. So let's be clear about that distinction.
So you're saying let's pump the brakes a little bit on that?
Pump the brakes a little bit on that because in Congress there is universal view, Democrat, Republican, to protect pre-existing conditions as defined that there's a federal obligation that be done, that people are not denied coverage, that they are not having a spike in pricing for that coverage, that it remain affordable, and that the insurance company can't deny them for any aspect of it, and it could be done in a fair and transparent way. I think we can do that. I think members of Congress on both sides of the aisles are committed to that. And I do grant that the federal court case creates, fog in that regard because it's about overturning the structure of the law itself. But I believe in Congress and in the administration, meaning the Trump administration and the Department of Human Services, they recognize the critical need we have to cover American citizens with pre-existing conditions.
And all this is going on while you're running a campaign, so I wanted to get into that a little bit.
Sure.
So the 2nd District voters, they've heard one name over and over again in this race, and that's, of course, Nancy Pelosi. And so your opponent has said he won't vote for her as Speaker if he wins, but that hasn't stopped you from tying the two together. When you brought the Vice President in town, he also made sure to attack that point, too. So why do you think that that name specifically motivates voters here in Arkansas, here in the 2nd Congressional District?
Well, it's not just motivating voters, Jesse. It's Nancy Pelosi is policy. If the Democrats take back the House, she will be their leader. If the Democrats lose the House, she will be their minority leader. And she has stated she would roll back the regulatory reforms of this administration of the Congress, that she would raise taxes on the American people, and that she's ambivalent about border security. She's the leader of the Democratic Party in the House. So my opponent can say he won't support her, but she is going to be the leader, and she will call the vote shots in the House for the Democrats. So because she's taken those policy positions, she absolutely is not just a political name, she's a policy point.
How do you see this race as it stands a month out? I mean, do you feel like Clark Tucker's kind of breathing down your neck now, or do you think you still have the advantage?
I believe I have the advantage because of the work I've done, serving veterans, serving the people in all 7 counties, working hard on policies that I campaigned on back in 2014. Lower the regulatory burden, have a smaller government, shift power back to the states where appropriate, cut the tax burden on the American people. These are things I campaigned on, and a strong national defense, something we've worked on mightily over the last 2 years. So I feel confident that I'll be reelected. I think my opponent is running a well-financed campaign. He's certainly out there campaigning. But I believe at the end of the day, the voters of Arkansas will send me back to represent them in the House. And I love the work, and I ask for their vote.
And you can see more of my conversation with both Congressman Hill and MP Chiste, who talk Brexit, bilateral trade, even bourbon, in a Capitol View web exclusive now on KRK.com. And then coming up after a quick break, the candidates for House District 84 in Northwest Arkansas discuss the key issues in their race, including the debate over enhanced carry here in Arkansas. You're watching Capitol View on Sunday morning.
You're watching Capitol View, Sunday morning talk focused on the political scene in Arkansas.
Welcome back to Capitol View. We are now just more than 4 weeks away from Election Day, and this morning we're highlighting another competitive race here in Arkansas. House District 84 covers the Fayetteville area. State Representative Charlie Collins is seeking his 5th term, facing a challenge from Democratic candidate Denise Garner. I recently traveled to Fayetteville, where the candidates took part in a legislative forum. When people look at this race specifically, you know that one of the first things that they think of as far as issues come is guns. And Charlie, one of the pieces of legislation that you sponsored this last go around in this session was, of course, the enhanced carry bill. And moving forward, I mean, it made national news because of the effects that it could have with Razorback Stadium and others. You guys figured out a way to help with that, but it continues to be controversial. So in 2019, moving forward, do you plan to expand, the enhanced carry permit holders' rights even more? What do you hope to do?
I put out 2 press releases the entire time I've run for office. They were both in the fall of 2010, and they both recommended radical changes to how we do things in order to improve the quality of life for Arkansans. The first press release said I was going to cut income taxes, an idea that was viewed as crazy at the time. The second idea was how we were going to improve public safety, how we were going to deter some of these mass shooters that have been murdering our loved ones and children in places like college campuses and other sensitive areas. And I talked about that in 2011 in the legislature, in 2013 and 2015, and then in 2017, I finally got enough of a consensus, working collaboratively with my colleagues, the governor's office, and many others, to put a piece of legislation together which will help deter crazy killers from murdering our loved ones, from shooting them like sitting ducks. And the profile that the Secret Service has put together on a rampage killer shows that these types of people don't just jump up spontaneously and start shooting. They plot and they plan. They plot and they plan. And one of the things they look for is being able to carry out a mission. And the mission has to do with how many people am I going to kill, or some other idea that's going to get the television cameras, that's going to get them attention. While they're planning and plotting, if they realize through that process somebody could stop them before they've achieved their goals, that's the kind of thing that can deter them. That's why I've been working for this public safety improvement, and I'm proud to say that working with my colleagues, we were able to make changes from some of the initial ideas I had. For example, adding a major training requirement to the concealed carry program to create this enhanced license, which has taken my idea for how we keep people safer, made it better, and got the kind of consensus that gets 70% legislative approval in the session, in this past session. So I'm proud of what we've done to keep our people safe. Public safety is job one for a legislator.
Denise, you've said that you'd like to see this legislation be rolled back, but with a Republican legislature, Republican governor who support this, how would you go about doing that? What's your plan?
Well, I've got so many problems with Bill 562 that it's really hard to start. But the first thing that I want to say is that it has absolutely nothing to do with taking responsible gun owners' weapons away. I do respect the Second Amendment. Our families, my husband's and my families, both have been long-term gun owners. Hershey and I have been hunters and are concealed carry certificates. So, you know, it's not a Second Amendment issue. It is a bill that is a poor attempt at a solution for gun violence. What started as the campus carry was really a solution for a problem that didn't exist in Arkansas. Our college campuses were already safe. We didn't have issues there. Crime was already decreasing before 562. You know, Representative Collins had already pushed a bill through that the campuses could opt into having guns on campus, and every single one of our universities in Arkansas opted not to do that. And, you know, he took local control away from those college campuses. And even that wasn't good enough. We have to now force the issue so that there are guns everywhere, and that's in public parks and playgrounds and libraries and the AMP here, War Memorial Stadium, Verizon, let's see, any campus tailgate, the DMV, city council meetings, the courthouse, public housing, churches, even frat houses. I mean, what could go wrong there? The bill is irresponsible, it's confusing, and it's extremist. You know, guns are not okay in every public place. And we saw some pushback nationally with the football stadiums when we were dealing with NCAA sanctions, and then as well the hospitals because of hospital funding. So it is definitely, you know, it's definitely a problem with the bill itself, and it's not just a public safety issue. It's also our reps' role, I think, in the legislative process. The bill was passed with explicit wishes of the stakeholders and the experts and the voters themselves who were against it. Charlie Collins didn't listen. He didn't listen to the university students or the parents. He didn't listen to faculty or staff. He didn't listen to the campus police, and he didn't listen to the local security. So, you know, that is not what your representative is elected to do, and that's something that I take very seriously.
So I know that we got into guns, one of the biggest issues at the campaign. Another one, you've mentioned this a little bit, is of course going to be health care. Mm-hmm. Charlie, you were obviously very instrumental in the Arkansas Works program. You supported the work requirement. Since we have seen people who the recipients start to be kicked off of it and everything, looking at that, is it panning out the way you'd hoped?
Yeah, so what I would do is I'd go back to when the ACA was passed, and many states had to make a decision. How do we respond? Do we expand the traditional Medicaid program? Do we say, no, Washington, D.C., keep all the tax money that you took with the ACA, but we don't want to do anything? And in Arkansas, we came up with a unique solution. We were the only state that said to Washington, D.C., neither D.C. option is good enough for us. We want a waiver from the program. We want an exemption from the program. We want to craft our own program that takes the money back from Washington, uses it to pay for private insurance policies, and begins to take the people that are in the program and have them behave in the same ways that everyday, hardworking Arkansans behave in.
Denise, do you view the program the same as Charlie?
No, not exactly. We actually do agree on the Medicaid expansion. You know, I'm a retired oncology hospice nurse. I'm married to a doctor and a cancer survivor. I'm mom to a second-year medical resident and daughter of a mother with dementia. So healthcare is both personal and professional to me. And providing quality health care is morally, ethically, and economically responsible. We did provide the public option with Governor Beebe, and I agree with the Arkansas Works. Unfortunately, our federal government is cutting away a lot of the provisions that help it to work. And so it's already difficult to get quality health care in Arkansas if you're a Medicaid recipient. And then with this new Works program, that's not the problem. And the folks that I've worked with in nonprofit world and healthcare in the last 30 years, they are working. That's not the issue. The issue is the reporting requirements.
Before we go, I want to get into ethics really quick. And so, you know, former lawmakers, several of them face federal jail sentences for taking kickbacks from state gift money that they gave to Ecclesia College in Springdale. And so, Charlie, you directed $14,000 in gift money to Ecclesia between 2013 and 2015, and people have been zoning in on that and criticizing you for that. What's your response?
Over 2011, 2013, 2015, District 84, former District 89 in 2011, was fortunate in the Northwest Economic Development District to have for use in our area over $400,000 in GIF grants. And I was involved in over 400,000 grants, making a recommendation for those boards to approve them. I typically did grants in a size like $5,000 to $10,000, rather than allocate large sums in any one place. The biggest grants I did were to the City of Fayetteville, the Fayetteville National Cemetery Expansion Group, and some others. With Ecclesia, I had a chance to spend a day there and got to talk to the students, got to meet the leader of that place. This would have been in 2013 or 2014. From what I saw during the day that I was there, it was an excellent option for people that live in District 84 or all of Northwest Arkansas who maybe don't have the grades to go to a school that has higher requirements, or maybe don't have the money because it's a work-study program. And I thought it was a good option for people that would want it. And from what I saw, I trusted that what I saw, the leader's commitment to the mission and commitment to the students, was something that had been ongoing and would continue. And obviously, with his guilty plea, it's clear that I was wrong about him.
Denise, what's your response? You said that the school should give the grant money back.
There's just so much about the Ecclesia scandal, or Ecclesia scandal. It is the epitome of legislative swampiness in Arkansas. And I think that even if Representative Collins was shown not to be involved in the kickback schemes or the bribery or the money laundering, you did take money from contributors of those involved. And, you know, I think that the voters deserve the answer to the question as to why. Why give our district's GIF funds to a private religious non-traditional college with 200 students and a graduation rate of 6 to 15% when, and it's outside the district, outside 84, while withholding funds for the U of A, which impacts our district in a multitude of ways. And I think, you know, I think the voters deserve an answer to that.
Do you have a response?
Yeah, so one of the things that we changed, and I was a lead person in the design of it, since we've now got Republicans making decisions, we don't always disadvantage Northwest Arkansas. For example, the college formula, called the Fair Funding Formula, has been used over the years to disadvantage our schools, NWAC and University of Arkansas, to the extent of overfunding schools in other parts of the state. And what we did is we added $10 million to higher ed funding, and it is based on merit and performance. And University of Arkansas Fayetteville is receiving millions of dollars of incremental money behind that program And I was instrumental in helping to make sure it was designed in a way that would meet the needs of rewarding schools for merit. The other thing that I would say is if we're sincere about swampiness, then we would expand our view of it from one of the situations that has ended badly to others. For example, this individual, Rusty Cranford, was hired by Teach for America by the Democrat candidate for governor, paid lobbyist money to lobby for millions in GIF, and that lobbyist has now said to the FBI that he was bribing a legislator on behalf to deliver a GIF grant for Teach for America to pay the six-figure salary of the executive director and to pay the lobbying bill. So if there are questions to be answered, I think they need to be asked more broadly. I'm not saying that Jared Henderson did anything wrong. I'm just saying the associations seem to me to be much closer than the associations that my opponent is bringing up. And if we're going to get all this as part of the discussion, then I think he needs to answer some questions too.
What do you think about Henderson's involvement?
All I can say is what I know about myself, and that is, I can only guess about the motivation for what was going on with these folks. I guess that it was power or greed, or maybe a lack of research in Charlie's case. But, I can tell you this with certainty, and that is I have no desire for a long-term political career. I could care less about the power associated with a legislator. And I'm not taking campaign funds from out-of-state PACs or special interest groups. I want to be the representative for the people, and I will do whatever I can, both professionally and ethically, to make sure that I'm doing that for the voters of District 84.
Denise, Charlie, a lot for voters to consider, but we really appreciate you coming on the show and breaking down some of the biggest issues.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're watching Capitol View, Sunday morning talk focused on the political scene in Arkansas.
And that does it for today's show. There's a lot of this morning's forum we weren't able to show you here on TV, but you can see it in its entirety now on KARK.com. And we also want to let you know that you can now take Capitol View on the go. Download the Capitol View podcast wherever you get your podcasts. We're back with an all-new Capitol View next week. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.